that stuff is flat.
Okay, I watched this video the other day. It was a FLATZOID live stream, and I saw that Will Duffy was on there. So I was like, oh, I gotta check that out. What are they talking about? So Will Duffy is loaded for bear. He thinks he's got a flat earth killer argument. Okay, so he comes on the show and he lays out this challenge. He wants to drop the hammer, but he's got to do the setup. So the setup is, hey guys, show me where the South Pole is on your flat earth. Okay, so first of all, he's committing a logical fallacy. He's asking them for a place that doesn't exist on a flat earth. He's asking them where it is. Okay, and they do a lot of evasive thing. The whole show, it's like 40 minutes, is them evading, you know, because they're kind of put on the spot, maybe, I don't know. And, you know, later on the show, I saw where they said, you know, like, hey, that place doesn't exist. Yeah, the problem is he's asking them for a place on their flat earth that's not real. Right, that's number one, but that's his setup. So he wants them to point somewhere on the ice wall. So he's showing a picture of the Gleason map. And so he's like, show me where the South Pole is, the ceremonial South Pole, whatever. So they won't show, they won't say, they just keep saying it's south of north. But he needs this, he wants them to say where, so he can trap them. Okay, so they won't answer. I don't know if he said it on this show, but I saw another show, he was on this Christian show or something. Here's what he was trying to drop. This is the hammer he was trying to drop. So once they point to a place on the, you know, South Pole or around this ice wall, he can say 3 people from the 3 different continents, Australia, South America, and Africa, you know, being that if they're at about the same latitude, can all get to the South Pole in the same period of time on a ball earth. And he's going to say, this is what happens. They get there in the same period of time if 3 people travel. This debunks the flat earth because you can see the flat earth, these 3 continents, Australia, Africa, and South America, are widely distributed, far apart from one another, and would take many hours more from each location to get there. So they couldn't get there in the same period of time. So he's basically saying, this debunks the flat earth, and he's all charged up to say this, all right? So that's his argument, and it's destroyed like this. You know, first of all, why are you asking us for a place that's not real on our flat earth? And number 2, that's not true what you're saying, that they can get there in the same period of time. No, they cannot. And the kicker is Neil deGrasse Tyson is going to back this up. He's actually going to debunk the ball earth. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Stay tuned. It's coming up. I'm going to show you. Awesome. All right. So let's get going, and let me give you a little bit on the logical fallacy. And okay, here we go.
Okay, so if I want to go to the South Pole, how do I get there on a flat Earth?
What kind of logical fallacy did he just commit?
Okay, so if I want to go to the South Pole, how do I get there on a flat Earth?
Okay, he just asked flat earthers how to get to the South Pole. South Pole is a place that doesn't exist on flat earth. So I looked this up and I found this. A complex question or a fallacy of presupposition occurs when a question contains a presupposition that is not necessarily true and may not be agreed upon by the respondent.
Okay, so if I want to go to the South Pole, how do I get there on a flat Earth?
Well, there is no South Pole on a flat earth. That's stupid. There's only the North Pole. So he's trying to be tricky, but he's setting up, this isn't the lie so much. Although that's a logical fallacy, that's not the lie so much. It is a lie, but the big lie that he's trying to trap them on is he wants them to point on the flat earth map to a place where the pole is, so then he can show the 3 continents, Australia, Africa, and South America, are widely in different places, widely spread apart, right? So that there's no way they can get there in even close to the same amount of time from those locations. Yet he's going to say they can get there in about the same amount of time. He says about. That's the fudge room, right? Because no, you cannot. This is just talk. You cannot get there in the same amount of time. But on a ball, you would get there in the same exact time. As long as you start at the same latitude line, head south on a longitude line. All longitude lines intersect. They all intersect the North Pole, and they would all intersect the South Pole on a ball. Just head south and you would get there in the exact same time as long as you leave from the same latitude. But that's not even possible. And as I'll show you what Neil deGrasse says.
So you spin, you know, when you spin pizza dough, it kind of flattens out. Yeah. Gets wider in the middle. And so Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning. And it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere. It's oblate. And officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that.
Okay, now pay attention, because here's where he debunks the ball and he makes allowances and he acknowledges the farther distances that we have on our flat Earth map, our flat Earth model, past the equator. When you go south of the equator on a ball, everything pinches in and starts to pinch in again or converge into the South Pole. He's admitting the flat Earth map, which continues to spread out. That's why he's saying the Earth is pear-shaped, because we know the distances south of the equator are bigger than they are north of the equator, and they continue to get bigger. Because we know the distances south of the equator are bigger than they are north of the equator, and they continue to get bigger. This is an admission right here that debunks the ball. Okay? Pay attention. Here he goes.
It's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good word. It's like pear-shaped.
Yeah.
So, it turns out
he says that the longitude lines actually spread out. They keep spreading out. They get wider. Remember, the Earth is pear-shaped. It's heavier, wider on the bottom. That means south of the equator, they're still spreading out. That's the flat Earth map that he's making an allowance for. He's allowing for the flat Earth map. The distances are greater once you get south of the equator. They don't start to pinch back in and converge down to the South Pole as they would on a ball. They keep spreading out as they do in our flat Earth reality, like this image right here. Okay, so let me get back to the logical fallacy. This can artificially limit the possible responses and lead to misleading conclusions. For instance, asking who is the king of France assumes France currently has a king, which it doesn't, right? Both types of fallacies, the complex question or the fallacy of presupposition, can mislead the respondent and the audience into accepting assumptions that have not been proven or are not necessarily true. Like the old one, have you stopped beating your wife? If you say yes, then you've just admitted to beating your wife. It's built into the question. Or if you say no, then that means you're not beating your wife, but you used to do it. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a crude example, but that's an example that's been out there forever. So that's what that is, a fallacy of presupposition. All right, now where he lies is, so I'm going to go over this again real quick because, frankly, this is the point in the live stream where Will Duffy was trying to trap them, and they were floundering quite a bit, I got to tell you, for it. And it's a live stream, but so let me go over this again. What he wants you to do is show him where the pole is on your map. And then you put it somewhere, and let's say it's going to be nearer to one of the continents, the 3 continents that goes closest to the ice wall, right? You have Australia, Africa, South America. Okay, now where he lied is he says, well, but people can get there in about the same time.
People travel to the South Pole from 3 different continents, all at a very similar amount of time. People travel to the South Pole from 3 different continents, all at a very similar amount of time, all at a very similar amount of time, all at a very similar amount of time. Not possible on a flat Earth. That's again why I have this challenge, which no flat earther can answer. I went on a show today of a flat earther called FLATZOID, challenging his entire panel to show me where that ceremonial South Pole is on this map, and none of them could do it. CK can't do it. Adam Griffin can't do it. So the South Pole is a flat Earth killer.
So from the same distance away on those continents, they can get to, even though these are thousands of miles apart, and he's lying because you cannot. But he said it with no proof. He can't prove this. Well, go ahead and try and prove it then. But it's going to be the same thing. You got to take the word of these people that they get to go with them to do this. It's all nonsense. And why is there a ceremonial pole? Why don't you get a real pole? All you got to do on your ball Earth is follow the longitude lines down from anywhere, right? You can follow the longitudes and they intersect. If you go north, they intersect at the North Pole. If you go south, they intersect at what would be the South Pole. Just do that. You guys then put your ceremonial pole there. Why is it a ceremonial pole? Put the real South Pole there. Because they know they can't follow the longitude lines down because the longitude lines all diverge out from the North Pole on our flat Earth. And they keep spreading out all the way to the Antarctic ice wall. So when they get to the equator on a ball Earth, they would start to converge back to the South Pole. But in the flat Earth, they keep spreading out. As per Neil deGrasse, they cannot follow the longitude lines down because there is no South Pole. The subtle lie is when he says they can get there in almost the same period of time.
All at a very similar amount of time.
Now I'm going to say something here to show you about Neil deGrasse Tyson. But anyway, him saying almost, there's the fudge room. Because almost, that means different things to different people. What does that mean? Neil deGrasse has for years, and this is damage control, Neil deGrasse Tyson has said that the Earth is not just oblate, which any rotating ball that's malleable would experience. And oblateness would be at the equator, it would bulge out. As you spin faster and faster, the bulge gets bigger. So this is what they say is happening in the Earth. But the damage control comes in because he says it's not just oblate, but it's pear-shaped. It's a little wider on the bottom.
So Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning, and it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere, it's oblate. And officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
What?
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good way. It's like pear-shaped.
Yeah.
Is this not an admission of the flat Earth map and the flat Earth that longitude lines diverge out from the North Pole, right? They in 360 degrees, the longitude lines go out. So when you get to the equator on a flat Earth, the distance between the longitude lines continues to increase. It gets fatter. It gets bigger on the bottom. There is no bottom on the flat Earth, of course, but he knows there are increased distances in the south. So he added that in as a little damage control, and he's saying that a rotating sphere with gravity located at the center of mass would somehow distribute the mass where the bottom, even though a spinning ball relativity knows no top or bottom, but that it would spread out on the bottom. Why would he say that? That's not how a spinning ball works. It just bulges at the center, at its equator. Why? Because he knows flat Earth is true. He knows this map is accurate and that these distances are greater in the south because the longitude lines are spread out like a starburst, like a sunburst, right? In the ball Earth model, when the longitude lines get to the equator, so they splayed out or diverged out from the North Pole, and when they get to the equator, they will then converge back down to the South Pole. But Neil deGrasse is admitting that's not what we see. What we see is they spread out still. And so the fudgery is just saying, it's a little chubbier. It's a little. That's the same as Will Duffy saying they get there in about the same time. Continents that are 1,000 miles apart, he's saying, oh, but they would get to this one point on the ice wall, wherever you're going to put that ceremonial pole or the South Pole, they would get there in about the same time. Same fudging that Neil deGrasse just did, right? By saying that the Earth is pudgy on the bottom. It's pear-shaped. Pay attention. This is where the deceivers, remember the Bible says the devil is more subtle than any beast of the field, any creature. He's more subtle, very subtle. That's how he did the Bible versions, very subtle changes, to try to destroy people's faith, instead of sticking with the King James Bible, which is the purified in a furnace of earth 7 times. It's the 7th Bible in the line of the correct manuscripts from Antioch, Syria. Anyway, that's another story. But the devil is subtle. So Will Duffy's lie here is when he says they get there in about the same time. He's got to whisper that, in about the same time. No, they don't get there in the same time or about the same time. Now, again, it depends how you define about, right? Everybody's got a different about, just like Neil deGrasse, a little chubby, a little bit is different to different people. You can use, that's your fudge area. Why Neil deGrasse? Why is the Earth pudgier or fatter on the bottom? Why would the Earth be pear-shaped in any way? That defies the physics of rotation on a ball. Where the gravity, especially gravity being located at the center of mass, it doesn't discriminate between the north and the south. It bulges in the center. And the north and south poles collapse inward, as I've shown in my rotation videos. So when he says pear-shaped, he is acknowledging backhandedly, hidden, right, that the Earth matches this Gleason map or the flat Earth model, which has the North Pole in the center and the South Antarctica surrounds us with a big ice wall holding the water in. That's what that's an admission of. Think about that. Pay attention to that. When he says that, that's an admission. Also, the other one that he did, the other damage control, because of the fact that we've put up balloons to 120,000 feet and shown dead flat horizons, and then with Bezos and Branson, they did those vomit comet rides where you go up and then they free fall and they get to float around inside their little capsule. Wally Funk and others expected to see the ball. They expected to see the curvature.
What was it like?
Woo! I can't tell you. I had such a good instructor. He took us through everything that we were going to do. So when I went up this morning, the noise wasn't quite as bad, and we went right on up, and I saw darkness. I thought I was going to see the world, but we weren't quite high enough. I thought I was going to see the world, but we weren't quite high enough.
And she said, I was a little disappointed. I thought I'd see the world, but we weren't, I guess we weren't quite high enough. Translation, I didn't see the ball. I didn't see the curvature because there is none. So Neil deGrasse came back and said this.
Oh, by the way, you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you. Do you know how high up above the Earth he was?
No.
So if you take a
63 miles.
Well, yeah, say right. So take a schoolroom globe, and that's how high above it is he? So he's about 2 millimeters above the surface of a schoolroom globe.
That is...
So nobody has seen the curvature of the Earth from that height. I just want to make that clear. Okay?
That stuff is flat. That stuff is flat. That stuff is flat.
More damage control admitting that this stuff is flat. Yeah, that's right, Neil. It's flat. Thank you for admitting. So again, watch for the subtleness. That's it. Okay. All right. We'll talk to you guys in a little bit. All right. Bye-bye.
That stuff is flat.